Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Good
Good morning.
morning. You are on live with us. We are Hassani
And Danielle.
Pettiford of Couples Academy, and every single morning we come to you for about 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer if the topic is great, but we love hearing from you. So as you sign in, just let us know where you're calling in from. We want to acknowledge you. We've been having some great conversations, and today we're going to be shifting gears because one of the things that's truly important to every individual that we work with and that we know who are married would be their children. And so we want to talk about the importance of parenting, how raising great children is critically important, and how you can raise great children and have a great marriage at the same time. Children are our future, right? We come together, we create together. So we both have just this love affair with our children. And so the way that we raise them, how we teach them, what they ultimately become, we invest time, energy, and effort in who they are. And so as children, they're very impressionable. They're like sponges, they're like computers, and children oftentimes will mirror what is modeled for them. So we want to make sure that the marriage is healthy in order for us to have healthy children.
Yeah, your children are the fruit of your union. So that's what makes it so beautiful. People are always saying, "Oh, this is so much work." And of course, we know we have 4 children. It is a lot of work. And the more that you pour into your children and rear them up right, the fruit will develop. So the fruit of your marriage and then the fruit that they develop has a lot, not everything, but has a lot to do with how they turn out and how they choose their spouses and how they turn out and parent. So it's really a heavy duty responsibility on us to be phenomenal examples and give them a great example of what good, strong, committed marriage looks like. For many of us, we did not have that picture. And that is reason why we struggle to this day in our marriages. We didn't know how a husband and a wife were to operate inside of a home. We didn't see, both parents operating together in unity, parenting together, rearing together, teaching and guiding together. We just didn't see it. So we had to figure it out on our own. And our goal is to be great examples so that our kids have an image, a blueprint of what to do so that they have the best chance starting out.
So let's jump right into this. Number one, your marriage is the foundation for your children. Just like God is the foundation for your marriage is the foundation for your children. So therefore, your marriage must take a higher priority over your parenting. The children, in essence, must take a backseat to your marriage. Said another way, we believe at Couples Academy that it's partners first, parenting second. Because generally speaking, the marriage came before the family. Good morning from Brisbane. Very good. It must come before the family. So therefore, TJ from Minnesota, if you don't have a healthy marriage, then you won't have a healthy foundation for your family. Does that make sense? So that means that the time, the effort, the energy, the affection, the resources has to be invested in your marriage as well as your children. A lot of times we talk about this, when you first get married, how you have your husband and wife hat, you have your children, you take those off, you put on your mommy and daddy hat, and there's a shifting. And then all of the focus, the responsibility and everything else happens to the children.
Yeah.
And you lose the connection with your spouse.
Absolutely. And I think that's especially a big problem for blended families, where, there's you came into the marriage with a child and that child has been your priority to you and you have been their priority to them. Right. So as long as they've known, it's always been mommy and me. And then that other person comes into the relationship and it's hard to make that shift. But it's critically important so that we can avoid the divisiveness that takes place when we've prioritized our child over the marriage.
And a lot of times when the children become your priority, it creates resentment in the spouse. Oftentimes parents can become envious of their children because all the attention, the communication, the investment, the time is given to the child. And it seems like the spouse becomes a part of their distant future. So the marriage must become the glue that binds the entire family together. And when you have that in order, when that is the priority, then that means that everybody feels good. Now here's the deal. If you think about a typical day or a typical week, the children obviously may get more time than you do or that you have with your spouse, but it's about prioritizing the time with your spouse throughout the course of that week. So, for instance, if our children require help with homework, if our children require time to play, if our children require just time to socialize and pour into them, there may be especially during this pandemic. Think about it. The children are home, so they're bored, they need time, they want to do things. So we may spend a considerable amount of time either individually with the children or collectively with the children because that's expected. There's more of a one-way transactional relationship that you have with your child. We're pouring into them, we're providing for them, we're educating them, we're comforting them. But in the midst of all of that, if we make the excuse, oh, I'm just so tired. Oh, I got too much going on. Oh, I got the kids and I got work. I don't have time for you. And we don't give each other any time, it is a problem. Now, what we require in terms of time is not the same as what our children require. Maybe if we are intentional to say, you know what, we'll spend a couple hours on a Thursday night just talking, watching something on Netflix. We'll spend a couple hours on a Saturday just taking a ride. Maybe that's all we really need.
Yeah.
And so therefore, we're
not. I mean, and I'm sorry. And I also want to jump in there because I don't want you to move on. Because I want also for us to acknowledge that we need to clear the decks, so to speak. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when I think about the kids being home and everybody in the world right now is dealing with that crazy dilemma, right? I mean, you talk about it all the time. Can we get to a point where we organize the day to make sure that we preserve energy, right, for other things? Because the kids will consume all of your time if you allow them to. They're running over to daddy. They're running over to mommy. They're bored. I know y'all are so sick and tired of hearing, I'm bored. I'm so bored. I'm so bored. It's just like, how much more do you need to do? Run outside, create a toy, jump on the trampoline. They're so bored. And so what can happen, especially in a time like this, because we are dealing with COVID-19, y'all, all of us our worlds are turned upside down with parenting. So I have to bring balance here so that I don't want anybody to feel like they're not doing the best that they can, right? However, you've got to make sure that you're prioritizing your spouse by clearing some time away for just you. And what that means is setting expectation for your children.
That's right.
Like, you've got to tell them, listen, mommy and daddy need time too. This is what marriage looks like. Mommy and daddy need to go in the back and relax without you guys interrupting us. Okay, kids, for the next 2 hours, do not come into the living room because it's mommy daddy time. Kids, for the next hour or so, please don't come outside in this space because we're lounging and we need quiet. And that's okay. It's okay. We feel guilty a lot, I think, because we feel so sad for our kids because everything is so uncertain right now. But I want you to make sure that you set that time aside for each other so that what Hassani said isn't the case, which is by the end of the day, by the end of the week, you've both given so much to the kids and the dog, if you have dogs, because there's some pet lovers on here, that there's nothing left for you.
Excellent point. Mm-hmm. Excellent point. I think we have a number of comments. Let's go see what they're saying.
This is her husband, William, from Indiana. Love you guys. And we have learned so much from your teachings. Thank you, Vanalee.
We appreciate you. Kathy, good morning from Virginia. Wonderful.
Good morning from Japan. Elise, hey, good seeing you today.
How's life in Japan? Tell us some more.
Yeah.
And
great teachings.
From Nairobi, Kenya. I love Nairobi, Kenya. It is an amazing
Never
place.
Been. I would love to
go. I would love for us to go, without a shadow of a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, love you guys. We love you too. Feeling guilty. Yeah, I get it. Kiara.
Yes, Kiara.
It's
you
convicting.
Feel guilty.
It's convicting.
But don't feel guilty because honestly, we're really teaching our kids. It's the best case. It's the best thing you could do for your kids to set priorities and say, hey, listen, I need to prioritize hubby. I need to prioritize my wife today. When they see that, it teaches them to respect the foundation of marriage, to respect the union of marriage for their parents. Otherwise, if you don't set those boundaries, they will railroad you and you'll be running around trying to please kids and you can't satisfy them because once you give them one thing, they want something else.
There it is. And that takes us to our next point. You must be unified with your parenting. I can't tell you how important the power of unity is. And so when we talk about unity, we don't mean uniformity, meaning we have to be exactly the same and think exactly alike, but we must be unified in how we begin to parent the children, because children will identify and spot the division. They know when you're not on the same page.
Truly.
They know how to manipulate. If they go to mommy and they don't get their way, guess what? They're going to daddy. And they're creating a whole nother narrative and a whole nother story and all of that. And so not knowing that they already got a result that they weren't looking for from one spouse, the other spouse would say, okay, no big deal. But they don't realize that the other spouse already gave them an answer.
Yep.
And so it's important that
they tried it.
Oh, they try it all
the time.
And so the more you two are in sync with one another, the more effective your parenting will be.
I mean, our kids, we have 4. So, they have tried everything to get their way, and we have figured it out. What did daddy say? What did mommy say? Because whatever they said, I'm in 100% agreement with. So they used to come to us and try to say, dad did this, mom, this isn't fair. Try to see if they can win and get somebody on their side. Fail every time. And again, what it does is it creates a boundary. They begin to see, okay, mommy and daddy, they are impenetrable. We cannot get between them, so we better get on both of their sides. We better come together and unify and do what's right so that mommy and daddy will move, because we can't be moved individually.
And another great point to that is the importance of using we instead of I. Because, I think this, go ask your father. So now they know, okay, well, mommy thinks this way, daddy thinks that way, and depending upon what the result is, we'll know who actually made the decision.
Right.
And then we'll go back to, well, we decided. No, they don't need to know her position versus my position. They need to know our position.
Yeah.
So using terms like we, us, and our creates a unified front that they can't manipulate.
And that requires actually talking about these things ahead of time and having a plan and making certain decisions about things. Because if you're waiting to the moment, and a lot of times mom is the decision maker for the most part in the home when it comes to the kids. So it's pretty much that way unless it's something major. A lot of times a husband will say, well, go ask mommy. We'll go ask mommy, see what mommy says, right? So if you don't want to have that, imbalance there, you've got to actually know ahead of time what your answers are going to be to certain things. Like I think about my kids I have 2 that are teenagers now. And before all this COVID stuff, my oldest was starting to want to go to parties, right? She was in high school and people were having parties. And so we already had a determination about what she was not going to do. You are not going to a house party at somebody's house. We don't know the parents, right? So those are the kinds of conversations that need to be had so that when you say, go ask mommy or go ask daddy, you're not shocked by the response or what the decision was.
Right. And sometimes our children may come to us as parents and ask us something and we hadn't discussed it. And so, listen, we'll get back to you. We have to talk. We'll let you know. And don't feel compelled to have to answer right away. Like children will put such a demand and a pressure on you and set these goals. Well, I need an answer immediately. And so they want us to be hasty in our response. Okay, fine. Well, if that's the situation, fine. And you know what? No, we can take our time. We can take our time with all of this. Yeah. All right. We have a couple comments coming in. We want to respond to that.
Elise.
This COVID-19 is not bad as it is in the US. We only have 13 active cases in Nagasaki. Wow. We are able to go out to restaurants, but not bars. Husband and I have been doing a lot of lunch dates. Love you guys. Well, we need to travel over to Japan to live life because, man, it's been a situation here in the States. But Kathy says, completely agree. Anna, great teaching from Nairobi. Love you. We love you too. So people are just chiming in saying, good morning, great information. I hope this is helping you because this is where a lot of people do get stuck.
Yeah.
And so, listen, here's another great point. Remember this, guys. Agree in front of your children. Remember, kids are sponges. They're computers. They're paying attention. They're observing. They have a front row seat to your life. And if they constantly see bickering, arguing, disagreements, stonewalling, silent treatment, adversarial back and forth conversations, you're leaving a legacy for your children. You're teaching them how to operate in a relationship. It becomes less about right or wrong and more about, well, that's what mommy and daddy do.
Mhm.
That's what I'm used to. So now they take that into their adult relationships.
Yeah.
So try to always agree in front of your children. And life happens. They're with you 24 hours a day. When they see you disagree,
Excuse me.
let them see you solve the problem in
Right.
front of them.
Exactly.
A lot when we counsel people, we hear this all the time. Well, I never saw my parents fight. I just never saw it. So now when my spouse and I get into an argument, we think it's the end of the world and the sky is falling and we're about to go, head for divorce court because we have no reference for this.
Right.
Or all we saw our parents do was fight, but we never saw them solve the problem. We never saw them figure it out. So we don't know how to figure it out.
Right.
And I think that becomes a significant problem. Which
Granville,
listen,
we should come to Australia in the
inbox
future.
us. We would love to come to Australia. If you could buy our ticket and find us a great place to stay, we will be there. All right. So we're talking about uniting your parenting in front of your children is always important. Never allow there to be a significant difference in terms of how you discipline, right? There should be somewhat of a similarity. Now, once again, we are uniquely different and we lead and parent with our own personality, but there's got to be some type of general way that we approach our children so that they don't see the division and they don't see a separation between us where now they have this narrative, this is the good cop, that's the bad cop.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't help reinforce relationships in a healthy way.
Yeah. And just jumping back to that last point as well, just one of the things that I wanted to add to that is just how, we can show honor to each other as a couple when we show up as a team. And so, a lot of times, and our kids are innocent in this, right? They just want what they want. But a lot of times they, even without knowing it, can come between you and be divisive, even when it comes to disciplining and parenting. We both have different parenting styles, right? And these things have to get talked about in up front so that you know how your parenting style is. But no parent gets it right all the time, right? Sometimes you got a little bit too angry. Sometimes you were a little bit too soft. But whatever, when your spouse disagrees with what you did, how you did, you never show that to the children. You always show up as a unified, front. And then to the second point, it says never allow a significant difference to develop between you and how you express your love and enforce punishment. So yeah, it's pretty much piggybacking on the same thing. If we show up in love towards each other, we can also show up in love when it comes to parenting. Like when it comes to my kids and disciplining them, I'm always saying, listen, I hate to have to take this away from you. All I want and all I desire is to bless you. It's why I work so hard so that I can bless you and do for you what maybe I wasn't able to have when I was a kid. But disciplining them in a loving way says, but you can't have this. I've got to take this from you. I've got to do X, Y, and Z because this is how I'm loving you. I don't have to be hollering and screaming and acting crazy all the time, but we do have to put stringent boundaries around our children so that they not only respect your authority, but they respect your marriage.
I remember when I was a kid, I remember I did something. I don't remember what I did, but my mother had to discipline me. And I remember her saying, son, this hurts me more than it hurts you. And I'm like, how in the world does this hurt you more than it hurts me? Because I'm pretty hurt right now. And now as a parent, I totally
understand.
I totally get it.
Like, don't they get we just want to bless them?
Yes.
Don't they get we just want the best for them? Like, why don't they just let us love them?
Oh my God.
Why don't they just behave?
And discipline is the best thing you can give your child, because if you don't do it, the world will. Like, if there's no punishment or there's no punishment reward system for their behavior, they will think that their behaviors have no consequence and they could do whatever they want and they can get away with it. And then they become privileged. They become entitled. Then once they leave their home, they're faced with a hard reality because you didn't properly and adequately prepare them. So when they do wrong, it is your responsibility and obligation to parent them, to discipline them, to take things away from them, to have some form of punishment so they understand what it is. Even the Bible talks about this. As parents, you have to discipline your children because you're raising them and training them up right for the individuals that they should become. Because I'm going to tell you, they will become horrible citizens in this world if they don't understand and have any consciousness about, number one, right or wrong, and the consequences of right and wrong.
Right. It was interesting when I realized that I'm not really raising children. I'm raising adults.
That's a powerful point. Say that again.
I'm not raising
that,
children.
Man.
I'm raising adults. So I can't think of it like, oh, I've got to protect my child. And that little child, they're not going out into the world. They're not going to have to, set up and build a life for themselves, get educated, have a job that they will honor and show up to on time and respect their boss and colleagues and be responsible and save money. The child, they're not going to do that. It's the adult you raise that has to know how to do that. So that was a super, super mind shift for me in how we approach raising our children so that they can be productive in society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Michael says, good morning. We always try to keep our problems outside of our relationship with our kids. God bless. And that's true. You want to do that and good to see you, Michael. You always want to do that as best you can. But when they peek in, and just know, your walls aren't as thick as you think they are. Right. They're not soundproof. So sometimes they don't physically see. Yeah. Well, that's another situation. We're not talking about that today. That's for another topic, another time.
Okay.
I think parents know what we're talking about. But when you're yelling and screaming and fussing and fighting and arguing, kids hear. Kids are, oh my God, there they go again. And so it's not just not being around them, it's just creating the proper environment in the household. I remember one time we had a discussion. We were like, you know what? Let's get in the car and let's go for a drive. We wanted to be away from the home because we didn't want to bring that into the household. Right. So that's a great technique. Go for a walk.
Sometimes you have those discussions just because, serious stuff and you don't want to worry the kids. I mean, for us with this COVID stuff, we find ourselves having a lot of serious conversations that we have to go find private places to discuss. So that's important as well.
Absolutely. Robert says discipline is a sign of perfection.
Yes, very true.
All right. Then we have a comment. Good afternoon from Johannesburg, South Africa. Our kids know my wife and I are a strong tag team. They do try their luck sometimes, but we hold the fort. We never disagree in front of them. We have made ourselves first-class citizens in our home, and they know and they know to us we are a priority and will benefit them. We love them by building strong relationships between the two of us.
I love it. You are a first-class citizen in your home.
I love it.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yes. Because you know what? Our kids, they assume that they have the rights to a lot of stuff, like my room. This is my stuff. This is my money. These are my things. And it's just like, hold on. You're the second-class citizen in here. You can be evicted at any moment. All your things can be repossessed. Okay, you have no ownership in here. You have loanership in here. So sometimes we have to set our kids straight in that area.
So true, so true. So hopefully this is helping you guys and giving you some insight and perspective. And many of you are doing parenting and parenting well. I always love when we talk about parenting and post on parenting because you learn so many different great ideas of how people do what they do in their household that you can glean from and incorporate into your relationship. Last point, your marriage creates the level of health and success that your children can obtain. Listen, at the end of the day, if you decide that you want to become the best mother you can be or the best father you can be, and your love goes vertically down to the child, but there's no love horizontally between the mother and the father, the husband and the wife, they don't feel as if they're in a loving environment. It doesn't create a health environment for the household. It feels cold and stale, and there's just this mood or tension in the air that's thick that can be cut with a knife. And they identify that. They do. And so you have to create a sense of stability, safety, and security in the home. I remember when we were living in Costa Rica a couple of years ago, I had never experienced an earthquake ever. Now, our home, beautiful, right? Furniture, things on the wall, just a wonderful place, felt great. But then that wonderful looking household became for me a potential death trap because the walls and the floor started shaking and I didn't feel safe and stable. And then my knee-jerk reaction was to leave and get out of the home. And a lot of times our children want to do the same thing. When things aren't well at home, they want to get out. And oftentimes they'll try to do it prematurely just to get out of that environment because it's toxic.
It's so real. That's literally my story. We were so unstable as children, as kids, that As soon as I was legally able, I hit the road and started life on my own. And I think about our children where they actually are comfortable. They don't have instability. They have two parents that care, all of that. I actually, we're more worried about them never leaving than them actually leaving. They never will leave, but we've got to help them see that, hey, you're going to have to create your own life in your own world. But our job is to create that stability. It was a passion of mine to do so as a mother and marry into a good family. And God has blessed us that we have been able to not be perfect, but learn some things to make this marriage a powerful one and be an amazing template for our children to attain to or raise up to. Mm-hmm. So I love the fact that we have given them something to look at and to see. And I know that they joke about us all the time. They make fun of us. And if they see us kissing, they're like, ew, like they roll their eyes and everything. But I know deep down inside, they're watching, they're receiving, and they're creating a vision, because everything that you've obtained at some point, you either saw it or imagined it, right? And so I'm so proud to be able to create a template for them where they can see, okay, I'm going to marry this guy. I hear Maddie will say, I'm going to marry somebody better than daddy, even better than daddy, And so I'm like, wow, you holding your daddy to a certain level. Like, that's awesome that you actually think that way and have a vision for marriage. So let's be a good example of marriage to our children, and let's give them something to shoot for.
So as a couple, at some point throughout the course of the day, have a conversation and ask the question, how can we be better parents to our children? What can we do different? What small little shifts and tweaks can we make that can wind up making a significant difference on the influence that we have with our children?
Yeah, because one more thing, I know we have to go. Having conversations with our children has been really great for us as parents to tweak along the way. I know back in the days, parents didn't ask, what do you think? Like, it don't matter what you think. Do what I say. It don't matter what you think. Do what I say, not what I do. That doesn't work. And that's we actually have conversations with our kids. How do you think we're doing as parents? What do you think about us? What could we do better? We have these conversations, and I think that's another level of them seeing that they matter to us and we're trying to be the example.
I think that's so critically important. When you create a space and an environment for your children to share, they will open up. If they don't feel safe in that environment, they won't say a word no matter what you say to them. So I think that's critically important. And so you're making course corrections along the way. And every day, day by day, hopefully you're becoming better at what you do.
Yeah, we got a couple more comments and then we're going to wrap up. Sonia says, loanership, love it. Thank you. What else? We got Michael says, we like to take a drive to the lake or a mountain where we have issues to discuss. I love it. That's really great.
You get away from everyone and everything.
Yes.
Love it.
Robert says, I like to always talk with my kids and ask them my wrongs and rights and what they want better.
I love it. That's exactly what we're talking about. And I think that's critically important to do. The best gift to give a child is to listen and understand.
Yes,
very
Robert.
True.
Yes.
Very true. And then Michael says again, got to go to work. Have a blessed day, guys. Right. And we want to say the same thing. Love you guys. We got to go to work, and we'll see you in the morning. Take care. Listen, go to couplesacademy.org. Set up a free discovery call. The number is scrolling at the bottom. We would love to hear from you. The website's scrolling at the bottom. If you're in need, if you're struggling in your relationship and want to take it to the next level and want some great coaches and counselors to guide you through a process, Couples Academy is here for you. Love you guys.